All right, everyone, we should be live yet again. We'll make sure that's actually the case. Merendel, seems Styx has taken up wizardry as he's never late again. Now, a wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins, nor is he early. Now, mostly it's because I have so many fucking tabs to deal with. I think, how many news stories do we even have today? I think there's 11 of them to cover, actually. We'll refresh this and make sure that we're actually going live. And always more coherent than Nancy Pelosi, as you will see. Not that that's anything but the lowest of hanging fruit. That fruit is hanging so low, there's hornets all over it, and it's sitting on the ground. So that's going to be a big one, of course. Recession cope. The big one I wanted to talk about today, and the first one that I'm going to cover actually has to do with Wikipedia, though. And it's sort of a runner on the topic that I talked about this morning, actually, which was the cope of, the Biden recession, which has officially hit. We are in a recession in the United States. We will be talking about his own personal cope about that. But Wikipedia arguably has the biggest cope of all. I didn't even bother collating that together with the other legacy media cope that I talked about this morning. I had eight different legacy media reports, all of them coping about the recession. Well, it's not really a recession. It's a technical recession. Well, and we're not even close to a recession. Well, we're kind of sort of in a recession, but only according to certain metrics. Complete cope. Huns with guns. Hope your child doesn't stream snipe you again. The child is currently out at the store. So, yeah, there's no infant around. No chance of crying. Today's forecast, 0% chance of wailing and chuffing. Isn't it wonderful? Timing is everything. You've got to split your labor when you're married with a kid. You've got to make sure everyone is watching the kid sometimes, and do little cute things. She's gotten to the point where she's cooing and making like the baby noise sort of things. It's very adorable. Here, just a second here. So yeah, we'll get right into it. Just a second here. I'm making sure that literally everything is lined up before I begin. I don't want any more problems. Adam THM, Tim Pool is coping again from his 49-state landslide. Tim Pool is controlled pretending to be edgy. I don't think he's controlled opposition. I just think that sometimes he's politically wrong. Yeah, I have no problem with Tim Pool. We'll definitely go on his show when I'm back in the United States. I have an open invitation for that, so we'll see about that. I will be back in the States, but I don't know when, because you have a million other things to do. A child, being on 2 continents, COVID restrictions and shit. Yeah, Biden could lock things down again, and never know when you'll actually be able to get back. All right, first news story. This comes from Andrew Kaczynski. The link actually in the description, I believe, on the live stream is a different one, but it doesn't appear to want to load. And I'm not sure whether it was taken down by the person who posted it or they got banned or something. Weird. The highlighted portion of this tweet was added today according to the Wikipedia page for recession. Now, what was actually added? Economists typically consider 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP a recession. Now, that's the original spiel there. You've had over 30 different edits over the last few days on Wikipedia with regards to their recession article, trying to change it over and over again, to refine it, to make it more newspeaky, to make it more sanitized for the proles, the low info audience. Everyone is Googling recession because the legacy media has put into people's minds that there's a debate over what a recession entails. The original definition, generally used, it's not official in the sense of it's codified in some law somewhere. The general consensus is 2 quarters of negative growth. Biden is asking us to take a more holistic approach. So I went through, and I talked about this earlier and yesterday. I went through and I said, okay, let's take up the Biden holistic approach. You have wages pacing well behind inflation. You have extremely high inflation. Using the old metric, you're already higher than at the peak of the Jimmy Carter administration. You have relatively low labor force participation, and it appears to be on the downturn. You have low consumer confidence, low business confidence. How many holistic metrics am I supposed to use in order to determine that we're in a fucking recession? How many figurings do I have to do, Joe? Drew McTighe, bonus bucks for sticks. Thanks for all the videos. You make it look easy. Pimpin' ain't easy. Neither is video making. To do this off the cuff with relatively limited notes, even though now I've switched to a news format for the live streams, mostly it's just me talking off the cuff. I refer to it for quotation purposes, and that's really all that I'm doing. It is not actually as simple as some people conceive it as being. Mostly people that don't like me will say that, like, the get a real job crowd or something. And that happens to everyone. I'm like, go and do this for a week, especially when you've got an infant in the house. Keep up with my schedule, dude. It'd be hilarious. No Yenes. Dems have a chance to win the Senate now. What are the probable implications of that happening? I think the idea is that they hold the Senate, which is that it remains 50-50, but Kamala Harris exists, unfortunately. So technically speaking, they hold it. It's always been much, much less likely that the GOP manages to retake the Senate. The Warnock race in Georgia is not helping them with Herschel Walker, where Kemp, by the way, also handily leads Stacey Abrams. The governor there will probably remain Republican. It was never a done deal. You look at Mehmet Oz, he's handily behind. I warned you about Mehmet Oz, dude. There are Republican partisans that are jumping down my throat every time I criticize him very rightfully for being an anti-gunner, for being all fucked up, and for having no talent and being a cringe lord. Yes, okay, Fetterman's a cringe lord too, but he's as far left as Bernie Sanders. We expect that from him. What about a Trump-endorsed Republican? Why are you such a cringe lord? Fucking get in the game, dude. Do better. Do better, and maybe people like me who aren't Republican partisans but are MAGA will give you a pass. Sigil Stone 17, it's terrible, Sticks. You need to get on the horn with Sleazy and find out what the fuck happened to Sleazy Pictures After Dark. They're all gone. I was not aware of this. I'll have to contact him and see what the fuck. Maybe he got an account strike. That's always possible. Nonetheless, regardless of anything else, he will be the midterm co-host. That is a guarantee. Salt A. Good morning, Sticks. If we aren't in a recession by the White House, when would we officially be in a recession by White House standards, if that's even likely? Well, we are, but they'll never admit to it. You could have severely lower growth for 10 quarters in a row, and they would say, well, yeah, but there's one economic metric that's not totally sucky, so we're not really in a recession. It's those damn Republicans. It's a conspiracy theory. They've used that term, by the way, to describe people who have different economic views from whatever lamestream shit they're peddling. So the first news of the day, yes, don't bother trusting Wikipedia at this point for anything socio-political. If you're looking up the lifespan of the silver-cocked thrush or something like that, Wikipedia is fine. It's great for paranormal entries, even if they lean heavily towards the skeptic side and cut everything else out. It's great for that. It's great for, biology for the most part, different species, culinary things, culinary herbs, different recipes. Wikipedia is perfectly fine for these things because they're innocuous. There's no debate over whether they're politically correct. If you're looking up anything social, anything political, anything religious at this point, including philosophy, you shouldn't use Wikipedia. There's a reason that you're not allowed to cite Wikipedia on scientific articles, including when you're in fucking middle school. Yeah, a wizard is never late, but he's on CPT, says Fox Chase Racing. Yes, I'm on whatever. I guess that's the label for Netherlands time. It's currently about 7:30 in the morning Eastern. So I figured that I would get to the early bird audience. It seems I'm mainly competing for the morning radio slot. Not a bad place to be. Next story. Joe Biden says that the economy is doing perfect. Then says, that doesn't sound like a recession to me. Then leaves without taking questions. Link in the description to all of the things I'm covering today. The second one is important here, which is that Joe Biden, to him, the economy's fine. It's perfectly healthy. There's no problems. yes, GDP is shrinking, real wages are down, labor force participation is down, confidence by consumers and businesses is down. You've got massive inflation levels, and basically everything's fucked up. This is the equivalent of looking out your window and seeing like wildfires on every fucking side. And you say, well, my lawn probably won't burn. I've got a garden hose. And that appears to be basically what the Biden administration is engaging in, which is that they're taking a garden hose to a wildfire and they're expecting to prevail. The fact is that the economy is broken. It's been broken partially by Biden's shitty energy policies, partially by lockdownerism, which isn't all Biden's fault, but he did encourage it, and partially by the freewheeling funny money spending of the last couple of years. It's abysmal. It doesn't work. We've tried it before in our history. It never worked before. They're continuing it because it's lucrative as far as buying votes. And that's really what it boils down to. You're giving people some breadcrumbs because they're already hurting, and you're expecting that they'll support you because the other guys are boogeymen. The other guys are much worse. Orchid Finance, Judas Priest or Iron Maiden? Well, if I can say both, I would say both. I like them both. Iron Maiden, I suppose, actually, between the two of them. The English Loyalist, more diaper money. Doesn't all this lying remind you of the Great Leap Forward? Mao lying to himself and others about how great and fine it is. Pol Pot did the same thing. Just to be clear, that was exactly, Pol Pot even made that excuse. When he was in exile, he made the excuse, well, people were so afraid of me, and I wonder why that was the case, that they weren't giving me the real rice numbers and stuff like that. So I had no clue people were starving. I never left my palace, so I didn't know what was going on. Many such cases. That's basically Biden, too. He goes to Delaware every weekend to mill about with the McMansion crowd. And then he goes back to D.C. and he mills about with the post-McMansion crowd. He rarely goes out in public for any other reason, really. Campaign stops, it's very carefully cherry-picked. It's almost like, are his staff setting up a Potemkin village for him every time that he makes an appearance to weed out the people in the crowd that might criticize him because they know he's fucked up, they know he's demented? It's entirely possible. He is just a puppet, of course. The puppet masters may be doing that. So, Joe Biden thinks the economy is doing perfect, but he won't take questions about the economy. Just to be clear, nobody's allowed to question him about inflation, about the official Biden recession that we're in, anything like that. It's he's got to go take his nap. He just took his bran muffin. Do you really want him to sit up here on stage and fill his pants with stench? I don't think that you do. You'd better let him retire in disgrace back to the Oval Office. He can poopy his britches in there, and then his wife and various staffers have to clean all that shit off. Clay-like plops cascading down his legs every single day is my prediction of what Joe Biden's average day is like. They give him the prune juice. He just can't keep it in. Sigil Stone 17. The economy is doing perfect if your goal is to beat the economy like a cop with his wife on a date night. Yeah, after the date night when they get back home usually. But yeah, your point is salient. It's basically the truth. Yeah. The economy is doing perfect if your goal is to destroy it because you are a literal Manchurian candidate controlled in part by Beijing as well, by the way. Laxaton, shameless ploy in trying to become more self-dependent and listen to Stereo City Cruiser, my synthwave project. Try song Mercy Awaits for No One on YouTube and streaming. Gas station cover speaks for itself. Okay, we have Stereo City Cruiser. It is a synthwave project. I'll probably listen to that. I like synthwave a lot. Joker1 over on Rumble has a comment as well. The Pelosi video is about 3 years old. Tommy Sotomayor did a hilarious YouTube video on it that they deleted. She's on that skull vodka, when your liver is optional. It was funny if you can. Oh, so they recycled an old video. Well, that's rather unfortunate for covering this as current news. But if Pelosi was that fucked up 3 years ago, how fucked up is she now? I might as well cover it anyway. And so that leads us right into the next one. Tandy posting this over on Twitter. I want you to take the third link in the description cross-platform and watch this. Unfortunately, I was not aware that this was apparently an older video. That just gives me even more questions, though. If Nancy Pelosi was like this back in 2019, God, she must be even crazier now. And earlier I was saying there are several possibilities about this because nothing that she talks about here actually makes sense. I thought it was current because she does mention reconciliation at one point. To be clear, that's big in the news right now with Manchin and Sanders and all the others. I thought this was a current video. Whoops. Fact checking failed. I'm basically the same as Fox or CNN now. I figured number one is Alzheimer's. So she's up there. She's in her 80s. Maybe her mind's just going. Another possibility is like Kuru. I know that that's a joke mainly, drinking baby adrenochrome and maybe you get some prions in there once in a while. Another possibility was demons trying to seep out of her mouth. Certainly 500-600 years ago, that's what they would have expected, and they would have given her emetics actually for it, and I'm not joking. Another possibility is alcoholism. We know that Nancy Pelosi has a bottle problem, same as Clinton, same as it seems most of Congress as well. And so maybe she's just liquefied her brain. How does her liver stand up? She must have plastic surgery on her liver. It's probably artificial. Maybe she has like a monkey liver, a rhinoceros liver or something stapled inside her at this point. No, Yanez. Wikipedia has Marxist parties labeled as center-left. Yes, actually, they do. What was the, which nation was it that was just showing signs of it? Was it Costa Rica or no, it was Panama, I think. Their government there is effectively a socialist government. It's labeled as center-left. I reported on that a few days ago. Same with the Sri Lankan government. It's literally tied with the Chinese Communist Party and oddly enough with Russia, but hush, hush, you're not allowed to talk about that. It's conspiracy. And Sri Lanka instituted the New Green Deal on steroids and collapsed. Its agricultural center is kaput, along with everything else because of their fertilizer laws that are similar to what's being imposed here in the Netherlands, over in Ireland, and in Canada, by the way. Big exporters of agricultural goods seem to be the only ones being targeted by this. Do you think maybe they're trying to raise the price of food to stiff people and keep them in line? Well, if you can't afford the food prices, you have to go to the bread line. Makes you a lot easier to control, just to be clear. And they're a socialist government. They're engaging in socialism. They're avowedly socialist. They're listed as center-left as well. No, Yanez. Isn't Fetterman a legit commie too? Isn't that illegal? Also, I didn't realize Pennsylvania was that leftoid to vote for him. Well, I mean, he has a weak opponent. Mehmet Oz was a bad pick, and I pointed that out at the time. I'm still getting shit for even pointing it out. There are some people that think that Trump's endorsement alone magically makes a person a better candidate. It usually means they're a good candidate because otherwise he wouldn't endorse them. In some cases, if there's no clear good candidate or someone has their reality TV personality or his staff have misled him, he's endorsing the wrong people. It's not happening often, which is a good thing, but I think that Dr. Oz was a bad pick. Digital Apex. How much violence should we expect from the left after the midterms and general election when the Dems lose their mandate and get blown the fuck outed by the GOP? There will be riots, but there are anyway, so that's par for the course. Alejandro Munoz. Sticks, yesterday you recommended Mischief Makers to someone looking for an N64. Nice, excellent recommendation. As a kid, did you also struggle in the Olympic stage with the 100-meter dash? Lol. No, the secret was this. The normal booster that you use, the yellow buttons on the right side, would not boost you as much as the gray ones on the other side. So if you're just doing the dash, all you had to do was invert the controller 90 degrees and use your thumb. That's all you had to do. That was the magic of it with regards to that particular one. You also had to do this in order in the second lava level, I think. You had to use that booster to get far enough ahead of the approaching lava wave in order to get, what was it, the golden whatever the hell it was, I can't remember. In order to get that for the ending, you had to get, there was an object, I can't remember what it was, in every single level that you had to collect in order to have the best ending. And it was very difficult, by the way. Mischief Makers was easy to go through and get to the end. It was extremely goddamn fucking difficult to get all of the awards in every level and to get the A+ rating in every level. It was monumentally difficult. You'd probably go through the levels 5 or 6 times easily before you could do this in some cases. It was difficult. Oh, it was a golden diamond. I remember that. You collecting like gems or something. And yeah, but that was the secret. In that level, you had to do that too. So you had to learn how to use the controller slightly inverted, arguably, in order to actually get the best ending. It was it was difficult. Very, very fun game. Mischief Makers, N64. Emulate it if you have to. Red Raider Matthias. So when the reduce inflation bill or whatever fails and makes more inflation, will the people of West Virginia get smart finally to get rid of Manchin? Also, Tim Pool is being a doomer again. Yeah, he has a little bit of doomer in him. I will continue to correct him on these things. I still like his content, though. And no, I don't think Manchin gets tossed aside, unfortunately. You'll have to pick somebody else off. Pick off Romney. Pick off McConnell and idiots like that. Kyle Miller. Do you think China will invade Taiwan in the near future? No, we will be talking about Biden and Taiwan and Xi Jinping, by the way. Zeranx, I heard Oz supported Trump during C-19, and that's why he was endorsed. Yeah, I wouldn't have made the endorsement. I would have endorsed one of his opponents. The Sinister Siblings. Have you heard about China's current financial and political upheavals? Ping's drumming about Taiwan seems more out of desperation than strength. Yes, I believe that China is having some problems. And you're not hearing the half of it because they have state-controlled media and internet. Alejandro Munoz, LMAO, I'm going to try that inverted control now. Yes, you will easily win the dash. Just fucking pound it as fast as you can. Dante Starling, No Golf and Gaming Pro, sent $2 with a no comment. Thank you. The Kiefer522, nothing much to add, just clank. We also have Metal Raider 2181 on Rumble. I'm waiting for the left cope takes of the real recession was during the Trump years because of tariffs and trade wars. You will live to see that. Next story. This is from Mary Tally Bowden, MD. Lawyer up, Twitter and CDC. America First Legal obtains emails between CDC Director of Digital Media Carol Crawford and Twitter execs on how to suppress free speech. Examples in thread. There are a lot of links here to various PDF articles. You should go through them. This corroborates something that we knew was going on anyway, and we have seen evidence of it before, which is that there is a coordination between elements of the U.S. government and its bureaucracy. It's tax-funded. That plays a role in my analysis here. And big tech. That is that there's an attempt to suppress independent creators, independent voices, when they share disinfo. And I'm here to tell you that most of what's labeled disinfo isn't. The fact that someone, for example, would say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this medical procedure does not necessitate that they were paid by Moscow. A person is not necessarily a Kremlin agent if they oppose sending aid to Ukraine. A person's not necessarily some secret agent, disinfo agent from abroad, simply because they disagree with the CDC or the WHO. That's what it's been cast off as for propagandistic purposes. And this is another example of that. Now, when they say lawyer up, they won't bother. Not only because they have full rosters of lawyers, they don't worry about getting sued over this. The fact is that Section 230 does not actually protect the ability of taxpayer-funded government entities like the CDC, which it is, to influence unduly, whether on or off the books, in this case off the books, private companies to try to violate the First Amendment. It should be seen as a violation of the First Amendment for any government figure or entity to attempt in any way to influence a private corporation, a private business, or a private individual to engage in this kind of behavior. But unfortunately, that's not the way the law is currently legally construed. And so until that comes due, until that becomes the case, and you do have some pending litigation on this regards, there's nothing they can do about it. What it does show, though, is a callous disregard for the First Amendment, a callous disregard for the basic ethical principles of the founding of the United States. Again, when taxpayer money is going to fund the CDC, and that group is then talking to a tax-subsidized group, but supposedly private company, even if it's publicly traded and hosts numerous public figures and services, and trying to get them to ban U.S. citizens for speaking things that are otherwise lawful, that should definitely be considered illegal. But we'll see if that ends up actually ever becoming the case. Unfortunately, right now it's not. VI, hello, Sticks. I was wondering if you placed any store in the films of Alejandro Jodorowsky and Kenneth Anger. I don't think that I've seen any, actually, although I do know who Kenneth Anger is. Adonis Adams. Hey, Sticks, what is your opinion in the best way to learn how to take up gardening? Can any of your books help? Fruits of Eden can potentially help, but you can really literally just Google different gardening methodologies online and find basically anything that you need. There are tutorials on YouTube and every other video hosting site for literally every species, literally every type of garden, literally every subtype of garden, terra preta, charcoaling, everything related, making a fence, making a path. Literally, it's all there. I mean, it'll take you weeks to learn it all, but at the end of it, it'll be the equivalent of taking a college course in soil science, probably. Mojo Hansen, leftist ideology will be responsible for more deaths than the pandemic if left unrestricted. It already is. I mean, just look at Mao Zedong. Look at Pol Pot. Joseph Stalin. These people killed over 100 million people over the course of a century. They've already supplanted that 10 times over. Westfield 90, left corrupted every institution, FBI, DOJ, CDC, academia, media, military, tech. Pessimistic, we've gone beyond the point of no return to save society. It's when you become pessimistic and black-pilled that there becomes no hope because you don't bother to try to change things. Always keep that in mind. No Yanez, a cult vid on the Founding Fathers? I did touch upon that at one point, I believe, like 100 videos ago. I'll look back and see if I haven't covered it. Sebastian Monroe. I learned the hard way that you need dunnage under your garden beds when planting indoors. Had to move everything outside and kill a bunch of maggots. Yum, yum. Why don't you just eat the maggots, you ingrate? You're supposed to do your part by eating the bugs. They're probably really great if you, I don't know, Cajun roast them or something. Don't you know that they can heal a wound? You just pour them into your gaping gangrenous wound and they'll eat all the dead flesh. And then you can eat them and eat your own dead flesh in the process. Klaus Schwab approved. I say someone needs to make a stamp of approval for that and start like shit posting that on things like articles about eating bugs and stuff. Everett Gamer. Hey, Sticks, had to quit my secondary job because I couldn't handle the stress anymore. Are there any skills during the Biden session I can or should learn for more cash? Well, one thing about making more cash is to reduce your spending. So if you're buying microwave dinners or something like that, learn how to make your own food. You'd be surprised. You will save money. If you can also grow your own food, you save even more. And if you can it or anything like that, you can save even more money. Just do anything that you can. Find a side hustle. M. Lambert, AWB, now going to a last-minute floor vote. Do you think this changes its chances in the Senate? No, it's, I believe, DOA in the Senate. J Spot 51, still no solo press conferences. Wendigo, can you call my friend Bilbo a dingus? Okay, Bilbo Baggins, you are officially a dingus, I suppose. Fox on the Run. Greetings and good afternoon from Rutland in England. I wonder if it's as filled with heroin junkies and homeless people as Rutland, Vermont is at this point. I've gotten pictures from my sister and from other people that I know there, and it's not necessarily pretty. When I go back, it's probably going to look a little different. Next news story, Bipartisan Chips Act tackles U.S. dependence on China. I'm not going to bother going through this article. I'm just going to ask you a very rhetorical question. Do you believe that the current incarnation of Congress and the current U.S. president, the steward, Joseph Beijing Biden, give a goddamn shit about U.S. dependence on China? Or do you think that they have no problem with it and this is all a floor show? It's rhetorical because it's clearly the latter. The CHIPS Act is not going to combat China. It's not going to increase U.S. production of chips or anything like that. We don't have the raw materials for the demand. Not without jacking up prices massively anyway. They're made in China and from North Korean minerals primarily for a reason. The only other place you can really get them is Japan. They struck gold a while ago. Well, not gold, but other rare earth materials offshore, and they've been vacuuming it up and processing it, and it's pretty good grift. It still costs more. It's going to cost more than getting it from China. Even if you mine it more efficiently, you'd still pay more. So, no, I don't believe that the CHIPS Act will do anything. It's basically just a huge money sponge, like everything else that the current incarnation of Congress is doing. You had a nice picture there. You've got, I think, Cornine in the background. They're staring at the back of Schumer's head. The CHIPS Act, short for Creating Helpful Incentives to Produce Semiconductors, proposes a $52 billion investment in a bunch of fucking private companies that should be able to compete on their own, but the government wants to pay them anyway. How wonderful. More funny money spending that's going to create more inflation. It's not going to help anyone make semiconductors. What are they supposed to invest in? I bribe the Chinese more. Hey, if you don't add the spyware to these chips that you're making, we'll pay you 10% more per unit. Mo Johansson, hard not to be blackpilled these days. A fool's hope, just like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Yeah, and you win in the end. You just have to have the intestinal fortitude to try. Your enemy will always hope that you don't fight back. The bullies do this too. They're hoping that the fact that they may be bigger than you, or they're certainly louder, will keep you from throwing a punch at them. Of course, then you get punished by the teacher if you do throw a punch at them, but, the bully is on their ass crying, so, yeah, it's all good. Westfield 90, curious, what have you been wrong on lately? Not much, to tell the truth. Just saying, I've been pretty spot on. Sigilstone 17, I need a Styx pagan occult gardening video so I know how to make effective scarecrows from the skulls of sacrificed Saxons. That's right, soon Halloween begins, basically at the end of July. It's basically the same as Halloween, right? Ninja Bearfish, is the United States a corporation with debt slaves or actually a free country? USD is backed by nothing. We are all slaves with a number, social security number. Well, we're not slaves, but unfortunately they are trying to turn everyone into subjects. And some of us do a better job than others at trying to buck that trend. It's not a corporation, and the USD does actually have backing, but it's not a very firm backing. Very malleable one that gets constantly manipulated for the 1%ers. Adam Styx, what do you think of anti-cosmic Satanism? If you mean atheistic Satanism, I have no problem with it. Okay, so that's the CHIPS deal. Bipartisan, as in, the neocons voted for it. Solon weighing in, why the midterms look so bleak for Democrats? Joe Biden. Yes, indeed. Without a failed president dragging them down, Democrats could still win this critical election. Time to move on. So Solon becomes the latest to, and this is Jeff Cohen, by the way, throw Biden under the bus. I would like to analyze this in brief. Joe Biden is not the only reason that the Democrats are having problems. We've seen this over the last few years. You look, for example, at Youngkin, the fact that he happens to be the governor of Virginia. That was because his opponent, not Joe Biden, Biden hadn't weighed in on this issue, came out and supported critical race theory and all of these things and said effectively that teachers should not have a role in the school system. And that rankled people. And overnight, he lost 5 or 6 points of support. Thus, Youngkin edged him out. And this happened other times, too. That's not the only isolated example. Joe Biden didn't need to be involved. He's a huge weight around the neck of the Democratic Party. He's fucking up. He's wrecked the economy. That automatically doesn't translate to good things for the Democratic Party in the midterms. But he's not the only person responsible. I wish that more people would point out that effectively blue governors were the ones that prolonged their lockdowns, causing at least some of the damage we see right now with inflation and the current recessionary conditions. While Biden is responsible for promoting those lockdowns, those individuals acted with their own latitude in actually deciding to go along with the White House line, or lie, whichever way you construe it. So this is, it's correct in the sense that, Joe Biden's definitely making things very difficult for the Democrats. He's a loser, an inbred pinhead. He's the grown-up version, the elderly version of the kid from Deliverance. He's just completely off of his rocker. But he's not the only problem in the Dem party. You've got the schism between the far left and the centrist Dems. You have poor leadership of the House. Pelosi doesn't know what she's doing. Schumer's not very effective. Joe Manchin effectively runs the legislative branch of the Democratic Party. You have constant attacks on parents and on education. You have attacks on gun owners. You have constant attempts to raise taxes. Not all of these originate with or even involve Joe Biden. Defying the meta. Here's some diaper money sticks. ESO still sucks. Moving on to Fallout 76. Need to practice for our eventual future. Lol. Yeah, I'm not going to play Fallout 76. Noobnut08. Chris Chan's case is going to a grand jury. What's your speculation on the fate of Chris? I don't give a shit about what happens to Chris Chan. I would point out that since he's clearly mentally deficient, if his mom is not, technically speaking, she should be the one in the jail cell for incest or whatever the charge is. We'll see what happens with that. I think they'll probably just find him incompetent and put him in a care home. Mr. Wonderful, in what universe do you send an incompetent, incoherent, decrepit, corrupt lush like Pelosi on any kind of diplomatic mission, especially one with such staggering possible repercussions? I think that they're hoping that she gets hit when she's in Taiwan. Oh, good, we got rid of her. Yay, we're so sad. Next story. Oh, just a sec here. Oh, yeah, okay, never mind. Why Pope Francis's latest apology isn't enough. This is from Think, Opinion, Analysis, Essay. So I gather it's probably some leftoid group here. Francis told indigenous loosely termed, survivors of Canada's Indian residential schools he was deeply sorry. But is this just a theatrical flaunting of the Catholic Empire? Yes, it is, quite clearly. The idea is the Catholic Church doesn't want to liquidate some of its many trillions worth of properties, because it's basically the mafia religion, in order to pay off a bunch of people that it doesn't give a shit about because they're not Catholics. When he goes there and does this, he's expecting a photo op. He's got there's a picture of him with a fucking headdress on, which is probably heresy according to Catholic dogma anyway. So the heretic Catholic Pope goes over to Canada, a country that's run by socialists. He should be calling out Justin Trudeau if he wanted to do some good to the world. And saying, oh my God, we're so sorry that hundreds of years ago, people that aren't even alive today fucked around. We're sorry. No, and we're not going to give you any money or anything like that, but we're really, really sorry. He goes over there for a day, says he's sorry, and goes back to Rome to eat more of his fancy food, which is probably like gold leaf plated, and drink his expensive wines and get his feet massaged by a 12-year-old boy. Just like every pope does. The Catholic religion, by the way, is fundamentally dead. Just to be clear, even Catholics appear to believe that more and more. The gates of hell did prevail against the church in the end. It's a done thing. You should abandon Catholicism for a form of Christianity if you intend to remain Christian that actually has teachings that are valid in today's day and age. Certainly not anything the Pope's teaching. Wolf on the Plains. At what point do we make gallows and guillotines great again? You can only push the masses so far before they snap. Desperate times and such. Oh, that's your meat supply, potentially. Alarian Horizon. Do you consider Beijing Biden an illegitimate president? Honk honk, since we're live on YouTube. No, he was elected by a record number of votes. That should answer your question. So yeah, fuck Pope, what's his name? I don't know. Are we on Francis or yeah, Pope Francis? I don't know. I think even Ratzinger was more sane than him. He's basically the social media Pope. Now he's effectively wheelchair bound and crippled up because of poor health. Good. His outward disfigurement now resembles his dark spiritual beliefs. Anthony Myers, what is your favorite thing to plant? Any vegetables and herbs, really. I really like basil. Yeah, a lot of Catholics don't even consider Francis to be the real pope. They consider him more basically like a heretical anti-pope. I can respect that belief. What I would say is that if you keep getting these heretical anti-popes, at what point do you have to say your God fucking abandoned the religion? It doesn't seem like the Orthodoxy has that problem as often. Certain Protestant groups, maybe. Certainly a lot of televangelist sleazebags that are smoking crack and going around with hookers and stuff. But come on. He goes, and the best thing is the Vatican greenlighted this. I mean, he didn't make the decision on his own. The cardinals and shit and the lawyers, of course, they run the Vatican for real, greenlighted this saying, oh, it'll be good PR and bring in more tithes if we apologize to the so-called native people of Canada. They were slaughtering each other for 10,000 years anyway, but we're not going to say that, Mr. Pope. And he didn't realize that the woke idpol left, because, I mean, the tribes themselves aren't the ones bitching about this. They're like, oh, okay, this dignitary showed up. He pretended to give a shit about the peace pipe and stuff. Probably smoked a lot of it. No, they don't care. The pink-haired freaks do. And the crazy Catholic Pope apparently didn't understand that the left would jump down his throat. He showed weakness by apologizing at all, which is something the Catholic Church used to show too little of. Now it shows it on a daily basis, woke weakness. And now he's getting bombarded for it. And he probably wonders why. Well, any moron on the internet would have told you that. He needs to get some random YouTuber to be his advisor. Buddy Lee, demons extracting their toll on him. Darun Albain, America has lots of rare earth materials. Look up a known American resource map, then place federal parks. Yeah, that's the other problem. We won't allow them to be extracted. CHIPS Act doesn't actually change that, though. That's the problem. Sebastian Monroe, Martin Luther warned us about Catholic corruption. Vatican corruption is a huge problem. They own a bookstore, a book publisher over in Rome that actually prints issues of the Satanic Bible. Did you know that? Or it did years ago, anyway. They rented a property that had a gay bathhouse only a couple blocks in the Vatican. I think it still might be there. Ms. Kim 1223, if you are not using fresh sweet basil leaves instead of lettuce on a sandwich, you are not living. So delicious. Depends on the sandwich. Red Raider Matthias, I worked in chips. I think we need to support U.S. analog production due to what those chips are used in, auto, military, and industrial sectors. Intel and TSMC have the money and support already. Clank. Always clank around. By the way, did we go off here on Rumble? Yeah, we appear not, maybe, kind of, I don't know. Just a second, everyone. I think that Rumble may have fucked out. No, we're live on Rumble. But the Rumble rants disappeared temporarily there. My apologies. Cam2425IA, Nines Fund. Yes, they don't have any at the store at the moment. I had to get Red Bull again, unfortunately. Westfield 90, I don't think that the public will ever rise up. They've been sufficiently dumbed down. Look at blue cities where they keep voting for the same people that created the mess that they're in. Fuck the cities. It's when the farmers rise up, there's a problem. There's a reason that they're trying to throttle the fertilizer supply right now. Next story, Xi and Biden exchange warnings on Taiwan. Just really quickly, I'll try to keep this to only the time that it deserves, which is well under a minute. This is a pony show. This is horse shit. The U.S. and Chinese leaders warning each other over Taiwan. China saying, well, there will be big consequences if Pelosi goes to Taiwan. Biden saying there will be big consequences if there are big consequences. Nobody gives a fucking shit. Taiwan is a heavily militarized island that's had decades to prepare for a Chinese incursion and happens to be in a military alliance with several other regional nations that are hostile to China. I'm not concerned about China invading Taiwan, and I'll tell you this, shit or get off the pot. If you're worried about Taiwan being invaded, either strike a direct alliance and go back to recognizing them as the seat of Chinese authority. Oh, wait, you can't do that because of cheap crap that you need to import. Or put a nuclear weapon there. That's all you've got to do. They're not going to get attacked. They'll be just fine. As long as you don't do that, this is basically just their way of extracting more money so that they can do more arms dealing. Keep them on a perpetual war footing and sell them goddamn tanks and artillery and shit like that. T-Bird III on Twitch has a point. Half of Taiwan wants to reunify. Yes, now look at on what terms they want to reunify. You'll find that virtually every North Korean wishes for reunification. Most South Koreans as well. They don't want it on the other party's terms, though. Sigilstone 17, Motorhead said it best about the church. God was never on your side. Lol, YouTube doesn't allow the Cath word in Superchats. I was not aware of that. Simple Logic 90, saw my taxes rise this week. Thank you, Joe Biden. Yeah, they're trying to raise it even further. We'll see if they're successful. Now we have one here posted from Fox on RCP. Bartiromo, I see no evidence that inflation is peaking and won't continue. Yes, now that we know that we're in a recession, there is still another question. Did inflation rise in the current month, or will it stall out, or will it fall? Twice, exactly, in the last year and a half, you've seen inflation inch downwards month over month. Mostly you've seen it rise. A couple times it was relatively steady. What will be the case? My guess is that Bartiromo here is indeed right. I expect inflation. I'll give a guess now. Official StixXN prediction. Inflation at 9.3 month over month the next time we get an update. That'll be in the middle of next month, of course. They take time to collate everything. I think 9.3, and this shadows the 0.2 increase that I made before. I undershot it before. It was actually, 0.4. I underestimated the rise in inflation month over month, or actually it was at 0.5 for June. For July, I think it'll be a bit slower, but it will still rise. There's no reason to believe that it won't. Again, GDP is falling. Wages are falling relative to actual value. Inflation, that is, the increase in the value of everything you have to buy with that currency. You have low labor force participation. You've got no advantage economically. A holistic look at the economy shows more of a depression than a recession than anything else. So I think it'll be 9.3. That's my guess. It's 9.1 right now. I think it'll rise. I think it'll be a slower rise than the last month, but I think that it will. In the future, though, it's going to pick up the pace, I think. It's going to be a real goddamn hard autumn. And that's because right around here is when the actual Putin price hike begins to kick in. Fertilizer. They've agreed to be able to to export it now through the ports in Ukraine again like they did before. It's the end of summer. It's almost August. Those crops have already been in the ground in most cases for a couple of months. And they got fertilizer, but it was a lot more costly. The fact that the farmers can get the cheaper fertilizer now towards the end when they probably in some cases don't need as much anyway is not going to help those prices. Biden's going to get crippled by this, by the way. Boca Fett 1775. You do not know the indignity of being compelled to save something you do not believe can be or should be saved. Starship Troopers 2024. Hooah! Tor Theo. The real news equals Chris Chan going to a grand jury. I literally couldn't care about that incestuous midwhip. I'm not even really a midwhip, but I'm not really a fan of the e-drama side of things. I just think that he's clearly fucked up, clearly nuts, and I don't think he should be in jail because he's clearly not mentally competent to stand trial. He's going to say and do weird shit, probably eat his poop up on stage or something. But that's the thing. It's a spectacle. People want to see that, so. Two trees. Biden will resign by January 2023? Unfortunately, no. Or fortunately, depending on if you want President Kamala. Now, the next story, and this is a good one. Ron Filipowski actually posted this. Now, he's a big-time leftoid. He's got no clue what he's doing. MSNBC contributor, self-proclaimed Democrat partisan. So, he's got the Ukrainian flag in his title on Twitter. So, you know that it's going to be shitty takes. This is from Lauren Boebert, though. He posted it to try to be derisive. And if you look at the replies, the reason why I'm linking his link here, go down through the replies and see what you see. I'll talk about that in a second. Lauren Boebert wants the House to pass a rule to give her 5 days to read a bill before voting on it. That's a great idea. If anything, it just doesn't go far enough. I have a different idea. It should be 5 days plus a certain number of days per certain number of pages. That way you have time to digest what's actually in the bill before you pass it. The problem is not some little 10-page bill that's passed on emergency fronting. It's like, and they're like, well, shit, there's some grave problem here. Quick, pass a bill to authorize something to be done about that. That does happen. That's fine. It's not talking about a budget. It's talking about the big omnibus bills and some of these other heavy spending sort of bills. They can run into the many hundreds, sometimes thousands, even tens of thousands of pages. And Congress is given a couple of days to actually go through it. It completely is an attempt to dissuade them from even looking through it. And it's all in legalese. It's all in lawyer speak. You'll have a bill that is longer than a goddamn encyclopedia, and Congress has 3 days to look into it. This would be a bare minimum kind of approach. This wouldn't even help with the biggest bills. It would only help with the little ones. The insinuation is that she's stupid. Oh my God, she needs 5 days to read a bill? Oh God, what a brainless bimbo. Look through the replies here, and you will see effectively just that. The idea about among the rather misogynistic members of the left is that Boebert doesn't know what she's doing and is brainless. Again, I would like to say, why don't you try to read something like the ACA in just 5 days? No, you won't even get near the end. You'll get 10% of the way through it, maybe. And that's if you have a lawyer on hand that you can just talk to get things translated, because it's deliberately obtuse. The whole problem is that Congress doesn't even know what the fuck they're talking about. How the hell are they supposed to know what they're voting for if they don't even have time to read the fucking bill? So I support this completely. I just think it should be tied to bill length. Maybe 5 days per 50 pages or something, like 10 pages a day. That would be reasonable, right? Okay, 100-page bill, you have 10 days to go through it, you and your staffers, so that you know what's in it, you fully understand what's in it. The fact that Boebert would like to understand what's in the bill, I think, is to her credit. It's not a statement that she's a bimbo. It's a statement that, hey, you're trying to pass a 6,000 page bill and you're giving us 24 hours notice. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And the fact is, they still fucking vote it through. They should be ashamed of themselves. It should be an automatic no vote if they're not capable of actually going through it, or at least having their staff do so and give them a rough readout of what's in the bill. Tony said, so is it only me, or did Trump seem to have less overall energy than usual during his speech in Washington? I didn't notice that. No, not to tell the truth. Sebastian Monroe. Lol, thanks for the comment. Think about those beans. Yes, I will be getting some Dr. Pepper beans, courtesy of Sebastian Monroe soon. Very interested in that. I love Dr. Pepper. Immortal Legend, simple solution. If you can't read a full bill, you vote no. This is a bad excuse for passing bad policies. Totally agreed. A.T. Jasmine, salvia is pretty crazy. Last 30 seconds. Usually about 10, 15 minutes, I've noticed. Now, we've got our last news story here. White House claims Republicans are sending migrants to D.C. as political pawns after Mayor Bowser. Mayor Bowser, it's like the dragon demon, whatever he is from Mario, called in the National Guard as Governor Abbott says Washington will finally learn what Texans are dealing with every day. Yes, let me agree, actually, with Mayor Bowser ordering out the Guard to deal with the migrant influx into Washington, D.C. You are correct. They are being used as pawns by Greg Abbott, specifically, and by people that don't want the border to be open. You have been using them as political pawns now for years by allowing the borders to be open. What's the difference? Shoes on the other foot, and all of a sudden the foot stinks. Mayor Bowser is getting all salty because all of a sudden you have thousands and thousands of illegal aliens roosting around in D.C., which is nowhere near the U.S. border. What are the Texans supposed to do? So they'll be there. That's perfectly fine. That's humanitarian. But they get bussed into D.C. where they voluntarily choose to go. They are told beforehand, here, we can give you a ticket. You'll be going to the capital, to Washington, D.C. After that, fuck off, basically. Do whatever you want. But we can get you this ticket. Would you like to go to D.C.? And the illegal says, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Oh, D.C.? Hey, maybe I can see Joe Biden. So there are thousands and thousands of these people currently now in D.C. They've been bussed up there. Over 4,000 migrants arriving from 2 border states since April. See, it's not just Texas. Arizona was the other one. Over 4,000. Oh, you mean that 4,000 illegals in your city aren't diversifying and enlightening the culture and making it more bright and vibrant? And now it's a problem? You need the National fucking Guard to bail you out? Oh, I think you need 4,000 more, maybe 40,000 more. They're diversifying you. DC is not diverse enough. It has a lackluster and homogeneously U.S.-born culture, and you need more illegal aliens to make the food better and to make the water more pure. If you want them so badly to be in the country, why do you not want them there? Why is it any different from them being in Texas? Are you racist, Mayor Bowser? Probably are. Scott Amos, they are voting on the assault weapons now. Irrelevant. Nobody cares what the House does. They don't have the votes in the Senate to get near overriding a filibuster. Roland S., any plans to return to the USA when Europe becomes unsustainable? Any countries you would go? Would you go into the BRICS countries? Freedom versus money? I want freedom and money, to be clear. I wouldn't bother settling in a BRICS country, although I do intend to visit India someday, mainly for the food. I will be in the US and in the Netherlands at the same time continuously. Joshua Perez. I prefer a Donald Trump Ron Johnson 24, but Trump Paul ticket sounds great as well. US. I prefer Rand Paul as the VP candidate. Anglo 1967. With the left living in a bubble, believing 45 will do time, economy is good, laptop is fake, etc. How can we win when the media lies and the world leans left? P.S. Congrats on the little one. The world does not lean left. Left and right are just constructs anyway. They're malleable and they're changing all the time. The left has become the ideology of the rich and is particularly stupid and violent. And the right has reabsorbed populism, which it had abandoned for half a century. Totally different from your mom and dad's Bush-Clinton sort of paradigm. Sigil Stone 17. Ever watch the video of the guy gardening on salvia? He gets all his gardening gear, smokes, and shrivels up like a bug that's been sprayed with Raid. Yes, I've gotten several other people high with salvia before and watched them. It's very interesting. I've used salvia many times. I think I might have tripped on it 100 times, actually, overall. John Hendy, do you think the utter failure of green energy policy and tariffs will bring anti-globalist and nationalist politicians into power in Europe? It's already beginning to happen, thankfully. Anyway, we're going up on an hour. I'm going to cut it a little bit on the short side today. I'm actually fucking starving. So I'm going to end the live stream here. We did get up towards about 4,500 people. So what would that be again? It was about 14 Biden loser units, I think, or thereabouts. Pretty good, pretty good. Sparky, did you overlook my earlier super chat, or have you been co-opted by the establishment? I may not have seen it. By the way, please don't send any more super chats, everyone. I'll go up briefly here and see if I can find it. Considering the number of comments, though, I'm not optimistic, my dude. True about U.S. having rare earth minerals. In the past, there wasn't consistent demand, so mines were opened only when stockpiles were depleted. Now the strategy is to deplete other countries' mines. Okay, so I got to your super chat. My apologies. And a lot of it's still sitting in the ground, but you've got to have a certain amount of it. Jim Morrison, shout out to New York City DA Alvin Bragg not charging the woman who stabbed the bodega guy, Jose Alba. She should be part of his legacy. Yeah, apparently nobody gets charged. Apparently there's no problem. Someone gets stabbed because they attack another person. And it's basically par for the course in New York City. All right, anyway, it's time to go offline here because we're running up on an hour. Tomorrow I will probably go for more of the normal time span, like an hour 10, an hour 15. It's just I'm still a little bit tired from the other day. It was a little bit exhausting. That's about all. Peace out.